Privyet! My name is Happy, and I'd like to welcome you to my History Reaction channel. Today, we'll be continuing our journey through Russian history. This will be part 4 out of 5 on Russian history from Rurik to Revolution by Epic History TV. As always, I will have a link to the original content down in the description. I highly encourage people to head over to Epic History TV, show them some appreciation for all the hard work they do on these videos. We absolutely need to support our original content creators because we want them to keep making this wonderful educational material for us. With that said, I'll also include links to previous parts as well as, once I can, links to the final episode. So this will be the penultimate episode. We're starting with Tsar Alexander II, who will be known as the Great Liberator, and we'll go all the way up to the beginning of Nicholas II. So let's just see where this takes us. Here we go. The Liberator.
Nicholas I was succeeded by his son, Alexander II.
All right.
The Crimean War had exposed Russia's weakness. The country lagged far behind its European rivals in industry, infrastructure, and military power.
That's true, but also in the Crimean War, you got to remember that they were taking on multiple European powers, plus the Ottomans at the same time. So the odds were against them anyway.
So Alexander, unlike his father, decided to embrace reform.
He did. He was a great reformer.
The most obvious sign of Russia's backwardness was serfdom.
Yep.
According to the 1857 census, more than a third of Russians were serfs, forced to work their master's land with few rights, restrictions on movement, and their status passed down to their children. They were slaves in all but name.
Right, absolutely. They were basically slaves. They were bound to the land. They could not leave the land that they worked. Whoever controlled that land controlled them.
In 1861, Alexander II abolished serfdom in Russia.
Yep.
He was hailed as the Liberator.
The year 1861 is interesting. That's the start of the American Civil War. So Alexander II is emancipating the serfs before Lincoln is emancipating the slaves in the Americas, or in America. And both of these emancipations are going to have problems with the follow-through. America has Reconstruction, which just doesn't really go well. And here in Russia, the emancipation of the serfs is done on paper, but in practice, not much really changes. The serfs, part of the condition of their emancipation is that they have to pay their former landowners for the land and for their freedom over time, which means until it's all paid off, which can take generations conceivably, they're still basically serfs.
But in reality, most former serfs remained trapped in servitude and poverty.
Yeah.
Alexander's reforms would continue with the creation of the Zemstvos, provincial assemblies with authority over local affairs, including education and social welfare. In the Far East, Russia forced territorial concessions from a weakened China, leading to the founding of Vladivostok, Russia's major Pacific port.
Yep. Yeah, so I mentioned this in a previous video. I think it was Blue Jay's Dumbest Russian Voyage. But people tend to imagine Russia as being cold and huge east to west. But it extends pretty far north to south, too. And when you get down in here, Vladivostok, we're right up here against Korea. And we're well into China in terms of latitude. And same thing over in here. So there's regions of Russia that are quite warm. It's just the exception, not the rule. And most of the population is in the west and in kind of the central latitude of Russia, which puts it at about the latitude of the southern cities in Canada. So that's kind of what we're talking about, where the people live. But I wanted to make the point that not all Russia is frozen tundra. There are exceptions.
Another uprising by Poles and Lithuanians against Russian rule was once more crushed by the Russian army. In the Caucasus, Russia's long and brutal war against local tribes came to an end.
Well, on paper, there've been terrorist acts from that region up to the present day, especially the Chechenians in my lifetime have been a kind of a thorn in the foot of Russia.
With their leaders swearing oaths of loyalty to the Tsar. In Central Asia, the Russian Empire was gradually expanding southwards. Russian armies defeated the Emirate of Bukhara and the Khanate of Khiva. And by the 1880s, Russia had conquered most of what was then called Turkestan. Today,
a lot of other countries now.
Countries of Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan. Imperial rivalry in Central Asia between Russia and Britain led to the Great Game.
Yeah, that's a fight over Afghanistan. It's kind of, it's a Cold War. They're kind of manipulating events there. They're not actually directly confronting each other. But anytime you meddle in Afghanistan, you're going to lose. That's just the way it is.
A 19th century version of the Cold War.
Yeah, exactly.
Centered on Afghanistan, diplomats and spies on both sides tried to win local support, extend their own influence, and limit the expansion of their rival, while avoiding direct military confrontation. Russia decided to sell Alaska to America for $7.2 million.
Seward's Folly. There was a gentleman named Seward who was campaigning hard for this deal. People thought he was crazy, but it went through.
Many Americans thought it was a waste of money. Gold and oil were only discovered there much later.
Right. But it's more land. Since when has America ever turned down more land at a reasonable price?
Tolstoy's War and Peace was published, still regarded as one of the world's greatest works of literature. The late 19th century was a cultural golden age for Russia, a period of literary greats and outstanding composers.
Yep. I love me some Tchaikovsky.
Russia, in support of nationalist revolts in the Balkans against Ottoman rule, went to war with the Ottoman Empire once more. Russian troops crossed the Danube, then with Bulgarian help, fought to secure the vital Shipka Pass.
Yep.
Then they launched a bloody 5-month siege of Plevna in Bulgaria. Russia and her allies finally won victory, with their troops threatening Constantinople itself. But at the Congress of Berlin, Russia bowed to international pressure and accepted limited gains, in a settlement that also led to independence for Romania, Serbia, Montenegro, and later Bulgaria.
Yeah, so this is a big deal. Again, it's all about the balance of power. The Europeans once more see Russia getting control of the Black Sea, threatening Constantinople. This time they don't attack, they deal with it through diplomacy. But what does end up happening is the Balkans are starting to gain their freedom from the Ottoman Empire as a result of this. So from this point forward, Russia's going to kind of see themselves as a big brother of the Balkans. They're going to view this as territory, fellow Slavs, that they are honor-bound to protect. So although they concede these territories to keep France and England from attacking again, they also insist on helping these countries maintain their independence. And this here, you're seeing the beginnings, some of the beginnings of World War I, because now you've got these Balkans freed. There's going to be a lot of strife in this area. You've got two major empires, both in serious decline, with the Balkans right in between them, and Big Daddy Russia watching over these guys. This is a powder keg. It's just waiting for somebody to ignite a match and cause it to explode, which is going to happen. Not too terribly far in the future from this.
Meanwhile, within Russia, radical political groups were increasingly frustrated by Alexander II's limited reforms.
Yeah, which is kind of a tragedy. They're upset because he's not going far enough, but at least he's going in the direction they want him to go. By assassinating him, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot, because the guy who follows this Alexander II is going to crack down hard and go in the opposite direction. It's kind of similar in some ways to what happened in Austro-Hungary during the beginning of World War I, where you have Archduke Ferdinand assassinated in Sarajevo. Ferdinand would have probably listened to the concerns of the people in Serbia. He might have worked with them, but they kind of shot themselves in the foot by killing him. Same thing kind of is happening here.
There were several failed attempts to assassinate the emperor, but as he prepared to approve new constitutional reforms, he was killed in St. Petersburg by a bomb thrown by members of the People's Will, one of the world's first modern terrorist groups.
Yeah, so that happened at a spot where they built a church. They built a church over the spot where he was assassinated. That church stands there to this day. It is absolutely stunning. It is a beautiful, beautiful architecture, gorgeous icons and imagery inside, amazing structure outside. It's got several different names depending on how you translate it, but basically the Church of the Savior on the Spilled Blood. The Spilled Blood meaning the blood of Alexander II here.
This act of violence would lead only to a new era of repression. In 1881, Russian Emperor Alexander II was assassinated by left-wing terrorists in St. Petersburg. Today, the place where he was fatally wounded is marked by the magnificent Church of the Savior on Spilled Blood.
Yeah, I've been there. It is stunning. When I was inside of it, I was awestruck. Very few places do that to me. This place did it.
Alexander II had been a reformer, hailed as the Liberator for freeing Russia's serfs. But his son and successor, Alexander III, believed his father's reforms had unleashed dangerous forces within Russia that ultimately led to his death.
So he's going to push back and push back hard. He's going to go in the opposite direction of his father, which is the opposite direction of the people who killed his father wanted.
As emperor, he publicly vowed to reassert autocratic rule, declaring that, in the midst of our great grief, the voice of God orders us to undertake courageously the task of ruling, with faith in the strength and rightness of autocratic power.
Yeah, so he goes full autocrat. No restraint, no bars held. He just goes completely, takes charge. He is the exact opposite of what the people were hoping for.
The Tsar's secret police, the so-called Okrana, was ordered to infiltrate Russia's many revolutionary groups. Those found guilty of plotting against the government were hanged or sent into internal exile in Siberia.
Yep. One of the guys swept up in all this a little later on, going to be the brother of Vladimir Lenin.
Alexander III was a pious man who supported the Orthodox Church and the assertion of a strong Russian national identity.
Right.
Russia's Jews became victims of this policy. They'd already been targeted in murderous race riots known as pogroms, after false rumors were spread that they were responsible for the assassination of the emperor.
Common tactic for autocrats: find somebody to blame, and it has to be a target that's identifiable. It can't just be some mysterious. Can't blame it on secret society, because you can't point and say this is the people. you need somebody that's readily identifiable. Jews, in this case, are a great target for that, unfortunately for them. But it can be immigrants. It can be people whose skin color is different than you. It can be people who speak a different language. You need to find a group that you can blame, that stand out in some way, that's easily recognizable, so that you can drive people to. You need to have the secure autocratic power. You need to have an enemy, especially if you're trying to do this as he's doing here, where you're trying to establish autocratic power in a very nationalistic and religious perspective. Tsar Alexander III is very much a nationalist, Russia first, Orthodox Church first, because nationalism and embracing a religion are great ways to secure autocratic power. They're kind of the two sides of a single coin. Grab them by their faith, you grab them by their nationalism, you've got them under control, but you need an enemy to unite them.
Now the government expelled 20,000 Jews from Moscow, and many who could began to leave the country.
Yep.
Over the next 40 years, around 2 million Jews would leave Russia, most bound for the USA.
Yeah, so that's where we get a lot of our early 20th century talent from, especially in the entertainment industry. We get Rachmaninoff comes out of this, Stravinsky comes out of this. We also get Isidor Balinsky, Irving Berlin, the Gershwin brothers, some of the early actors and entertainers in vaudeville and some of the early movies. Eddie Cantor, Al Jolson, Danny Kaye come to mind as guys who come out of this. Either directly, they are some of these young immigrants, or they are first generation children of these Russian Jews that are being driven out by this. Our entertainment industry was hugely bolstered by this exodus.
Concerned by the growing power of Germany, Russia signed an alliance with France, both sides promising military aid if the other was attacked. Sergei Witte was appointed Russia's new Minister of Finance. His reforms helped to modernize the Russian economy and encourage foreign investment, particularly from its new ally, France.
Exactly.
French loans helped Russia to develop its industry and infrastructure. Work began on the Trans-Siberian Railway. Completed in 1916, it remains the world's longest railway line, running 5,772 miles, from Moscow to Vladivostok.
And now it's connected to the rest of Europe and via the Channel Tunnel to England. So it's theoretically possible to get on a train in England and ride all the way down to Vladivostok. And if China ever does what they want to do and builds a tunnel or a railway from China to Alaska, then we're going to have, well, from Russia to Alaska. China wants to do that. And you could theoretically take a train pretty much around the world, which would be awesome. But I've always wanted, one of my bucket list items is to get on the train in London and go all the way to Vladivostok, just for the heck of it. I think maybe if I ever retire and if I have no responsibilities and nobody to hold me back, or somebody who wants to come with me, I would definitely consider doing that.
Alexander III was succeeded by his son, Nicholas II.
Right.
His coronation was marred by tragedy when 1,400 people were crushed to death at an open-air celebration in Moscow.
Right. So we're going to go ahead and I think we're going to wrap it up here. There's only about 9 minutes left. So we'll save this for part 5. Nicholas is not in any way prepared to take over from Alexander III. Alexander III is an autocrat. He's in full charge. He kind of doesn't take his son seriously. He doesn't train him. Nicholas is just basically in Alexander's shadow and has zero idea how to run this country. And there's going to be a lot of pushback in this period because of the tyranny of Alexander III. He is an autocrat. He's pushing people out of the country. He's riling it up. These secret societies are still here. They're madder than ever as a result of Alexander III. And now, a guy who doesn't want to be ruler, Nicholas II, a guy who straight out tells everybody, I am not prepared to rule. I am not fit to rule. I don't know what I'm doing. He's going to be in charge. And this right here is the beginning of the end of Russia as an empire, as a monarchy. So we'll pick up here and we'll go on up to the revolution, which will be our conclusion. Thank you for joining me. Again, please show Epic History TV your support. We want him to keep making these videos. And that said, I'll see y'all next time. До свидания. Bye-bye.